The year was 2150. Earth had changed much since the old days. Humans had built cities on Mars and had a small base on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. They were proud of how far they had come. Han Tai stood by the large window on orbital station Unity. His heart beat fast as he watched the alien ship approach. It was sleek and silver, unlike any human craft. As Earth's chief ambassador, Han had waited for this day his whole life. "They're here," said Park Ji, adjusting her blue uniform. She was Earth's top scientist and had helped discover the signals that first attracted the aliens' attention. The ship docked with barely a sound. When the doors opened, Han held his breath. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Confederation. There were 27 different species working together, traveling between stars. And now they wanted humans to join them. The first alien to step through was tall with pale blue skin. "I am Lu," it said in perfect English. "We are pleased to welcome humanity to the stars." The next weeks were filled with celebrations. Humans learned about new technologies, medicines, and ways to travel faster than light. Earth joined the Confederation as its newest and youngest member. Han spent his days in meetings, learning about the rules and customs of space. Then everything changed. Han was woken in the middle of the night by an urgent call. "Ambassador, you must come to the command center immediately," said a voice. When he arrived, Park Ji was already there. Her face was pale. "They've detected something," she whispered. The main screen showed a massive cloud moving through space. It wasn't a natural phenomenon, it was alive. "We call it the Void Swarm," said Lu, who had also been called to the meeting. "It consumes everything in its path, plants, animals, people, even some metals. Nothing survives." Kim Do, Earth's military leader, stepped forward. "What's the Confederation's plan to fight it?" Lu's large eyes blinked slowly. "Fight. No one fights the swarm. It cannot be defeated. We track its path and evacuate worlds in danger." Han felt cold. "And where is it heading now?" The answer came with the touch of a button. The screen zoomed out to show the swarm's path, a direct line toward Earth's solar system. "How long do we have?" asked Park Ji. 18 months, replied Lu. "The Confederation will help evacuate your leaders and store samples of your planet's life forms. We can save some of your people too, though space is limited." Kim Do slammed his fist on the table. "Evacuate? This is our home. We should prepare to defend it." Lu looked at him with what seemed like pity. "Young species often react this way. The swarm has destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours. The Confederation's policy is clear. We retreat, we survive, we rebuild elsewhere." Over the next few days, news of the swarm spread across Earth. People reacted with fear, anger, and disbelief. Some began building private shelters, others held end-of-world parties. Han attended an emergency meeting of the Confederation Council. All 27 species were represented. One by one, they voted to follow their usual protocol: strategic retreat from the swarm's path. When it was Earth's turn to vote, Han stood tall. "Humanity votes to fight. We request the Confederation's help in defending our system." The chamber filled with sounds that the translator couldn't quite handle, alien versions of laughter, scoffing, and dismay. "You are outvoted, 26-1, said the council leader. "The retreat begins tomorrow." Back on Earth, President Lee Sun called a meeting of the United Earth Government. "The Confederation is leaving," he announced. "They've offered to take 50,000 humans with them." The room erupted. 50,000 out of 11 billion, shouted one official. Han watched as his world's leaders argued about what to do. Finally, Choi Min, an older woman who had survived many Earth crises, stood up. "I say we stay and fight," she said simply. "This is our home. If we run now, we'll always be running." The vote was unanimous. Earth would stand against the swarm. Even as Confederation ships began to depart the solar system, humans started to prepare. They had 18 months to get ready for a fight that no one believed they could win. But humans had always been good at doing the impossible. You'll need to create a compelling 750-word continuation of the story, focusing on the Galactic Confederation's response. Remember to use simple, basic English in third-person style. Avoid headings and make sure it's engaging. Stay within the HFY, Humanity, HFY, subgenre that celebrates human exceptionalism in a sci-fi setting. Han. Tay adjusted his formal suit as he stepped into the grand chamber of the Confederation Council. The room was massive, designed to hold representatives from all 27 member species. Today, every seat was filled. The Void Swarm threat had brought them all together. The air felt heavy with tension. Han took his place at the human station, a simple platform that seemed small compared to the elaborate setups of older member races. As the newest members, humans were seated at the far edge of the circle. Lu, the blue-skinned alien who had first welcomed humanity to the stars, stood at the center. The Void Swarm has changed course. Our scientists confirm it will reach Earth's solar system in 18 months. We must act quickly. Images appeared above the center of the chamber. The swarm looked like a dark cloud in space, but when the view zoomed in, Han could see it was made of countless small creatures moving together as one mind. The swarm has consumed 14 systems in the past cycle, continued Lu. No defense has ever stopped them. They adapt to all weapons. They learn from each attack. Han watched as the images showed planets being covered by the dark mass. It made his stomach turn. An alien with 6 arms and shiny green skin spoke next. We have studied the swarm for 300 years. They consume all organic matter and many metals. They grow stronger with each world they take. What about fighting them? Han asked, his voice sounding small in the large room. Has anyone tried to destroy their central control? The chamber filled with a strange mix of sounds, clicks, whistles, and rumbles that Han's translator interpreted as laughter and scoffing. Young species always suggest fighting, said a tall, thin alien wrapped in glowing robes. The swarm has no central control. Each piece is part of the whole. Kill one, and millions take its place. Lu raised a hand for quiet. We will now vote on the official response. The options are strategic retreat from all systems in the swarm's path or attempted defense. One by one, the representatives voted. Han wasn't surprised when every species chose retreat. When it was Earth's turn, he stood tall. Humanity votes to fight. We request the Confederation's assistance in developing defenses. The chamber erupted again. When quiet returned, Lu spoke directly to Han. You are outvoted, 26-1. The evacuation begins immediately. The Confederation will assist in relocating a sample of your population. After the meeting, Han found himself surrounded by representatives from other species. Your people don't understand, said one with features like a bird. My species fought the swarm 200 years ago. We lost 3 homeworlds before we learned to run. Running saved us, added another whose body seemed made of crystal. We rebuilt elsewhere. Life continued. Han looked at them all. How many of your people were saved when you ran? The alien representatives glanced at each other. Finally, one shaped like a giant insect answered. The rich, the powerful, the genetically superior. Enough to start again. Han felt cold. And the rest? Sacrificed for the survival of the species, said the crystal being. It is the way of the universe. The strong survive. That is not our way, Han replied quietly. Back in his quarters, Han received a message from home. President Lee's face appeared on the screen, tired but determined. What's the news, Ambassador? They've all voted to run, Han replied. They'll help evacuate 50,000 humans, mostly leaders, scientists, and genetic samples. Lee's face hardened. 50,000 out of 11 billion. And who chooses who lives? They do, mostly, Han said, based on what they call species value. Lee was quiet for a moment. We've been holding our own vote here. The people have spoken. We stay. And fight all of us together. Han nodded. I'll inform the Council of our decision. Over the next few days, Han watched as Confederation ships began leaving nearby systems. Alien ambassadors on Earth packed up their embassies. Equipment too large to move was abandoned. You could come with us, Lu told Han during their final meeting. You would be valuable to preserving human knowledge. Han shook his head. My place is with my people. Then you will die with them, Lu said sadly. The swarm cannot be beaten. Han smiled slightly. Perhaps, but we won't know unless we try. As the last Confederation ship prepared to leave Earth, orbit, Han stood at the same window where he had first watched them arrive, Behind him, humans were already converting the abandoned alien technology into weapons. The Confederation had run. Humanity would stand and fight. The last Confederation ship vanished from Earth's sky with a flash of blue light. Park Ji watched from the roof of the Seoul Research Center. For a moment, the sky seemed empty, but then her eyes found the stars and the distant red dot of Mars. "These were still there, these were still home, so they're really gone," said Kim Do, coming to stand beside her. The military leader looked tired. He hadn't slept much since the news of the swarm first broke. "All gone," Park confirmed. "They left some technology behind, things too big to move. But they took all their experts, all their knowledge." Kim's face hardened. They took the easy way out, running instead of fighting. Around the world, the story was the same. Alien embassies stood empty. Confederation trading posts were abandoned. A few aliens had chosen to stay, those who had made deep connections with humans or who disagreed with their species' decision to flee. But they were very few. President Lee Sun called an emergency meeting of the United Earth Government. Representatives from every nation gathered in the Great Hall in New Geneva. The mood was grim but determined. "The Confederation has abandoned us," Lee said, standing at the center of the circular room. "They've offered to take 50,000 humans with them. I need to give them our answer today." Choi Min, the representative from the Asian Alliance, stood up. She was in her 70s, her face lined with age and wisdom. "Who would go? Who would we choose to save?" "The Confederation has provided a list," Lee said, his voice tight with anger. "World leaders, top scientists, military strategists, those they consider most valuable." The room filled with angry voices. Nam Won from the African Union shouted above the noise. "So the rich and powerful get to live while everyone else dies? No." "I agree," said Lee, raising his hands for quiet. "That's why I've called this meeting. We must decide together." The debate lasted for hours. Some argued that saving 50,000 was better than saving none. Others insisted they should all stay and fight together. The Confederation had left behind some technology. Perhaps humans could find a way to use it. As the sun set outside, Choi Min rose once more to speak. The room fell silent. She was the oldest person there, respected by all. "I have lived through wars, through plagues, through the climate crisis," she said. "I have seen humanity at its worst and at its best, and I know this. We are at our best when we stand together." She looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes. "If we send these 50,000 away, we divide humanity forever. Those who were chosen to live, and those who were left to die. Even if we survive as a species, we would never recover from that wound." The room was very quiet now. Even those who had argued for evacuation looked thoughtful. "I say we stay," Choi continued. "All of us. We stand together. We fight together. And if we must, we die together. But we do not abandon each other." Nam Won stood up. "I agree. My people have suffered when the powerful decided who would live and who would die. Never again." One by one, the representatives rose to their feet. They came from different nations, different backgrounds, but in this moment they were united. President Lee looked around the room, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "Then it is decided. We will inform the Confederation that humanity remains on Earth, all of us." Later that night, Lee made the call to the waiting Confederation ship. Hantai stood beside him, ready to translate if needed. "We have made our decision," Lee told the alien captain. "Humanity stays. All of us." The alien's large eyes blinked slowly. "This is most unwise. The swarm cannot be defeated." "Perhaps," Lee replied, "but we will face it together as one people." After the call ended, Lee turned to his advisors. "Now we prepare. We have 18 months. Kim Do nodded. "I've already begun organizing our global defense forces, and our scientists are studying the technology the Confederation left behind." "We'll need more than weapons," said Park Ji. "We need new ideas, new approaches." The Confederation failed because they kept using the same old tactics. Lee looked at each of them, the soldier, the scientist, the diplomat. "Then we will find new ways. We are human. Adaptation is what we do best." Outside, the news spread quickly. Humanity would make it stand. There would be no evacuation, no chosen few to survive. They would face the swarm together, and across the world people began to prepare. Colonel Beiji stood perfectly still as she watched the large screen in Earth's Defense Command Center. After 16 months of preparation, the moment had finally arrived. The void swarm had entered the outer reaches of the solar system. First contact in 5 minutes, reported Lieutenant Ryu, his voice steady despite the tension in the room. Outer sensors are tracking their approach. Bay nodded. She had been chosen to lead Earth's defense forces after a distinguished military career. Now, at 42, she faced humanity's greatest challenge. All stations report ready, said Oh. Sung, her communications officer. Defense platforms are online and waiting for your command. The command center was buried deep beneath Seoul, protected by layers of rock and advanced shields. Similar centers existed on every continent, all connected in a global network. If one fell, others would continue the fight. Show me the enemy, Bay ordered. The screen changed to show a view from the farthest defense platform near Neptune. At first, there was nothing but the blackness of space. Then they appeared, small dots of light moving in perfect formation. As the camera zoomed in, the dots resolved into strange organic shapes. They weren't ships exactly, more like living creatures with metallic parts embedded in their bodies. So they're smaller than we expected, said Park Ji, who had joined the military effort as chief scientist. Each one is only about the size of a car. How many? Asked Bay. Park consulted her data pad. Thousands in this first wave, and more behind. Them. Bay took a deep breath. This was just the beginning. The scouts sent ahead to test Earth's defenses. The main swarm would come later. They're approaching Defense Ring Alpha, reported Ryu, entering firing range in 30 seconds. Bay touched the small communicator in her ear. All platforms, this is command. Prepare to execute Thunderbolt Protocol on my mark. The Thunderbolt Protocol was their first line of defense, a series of weapons based on modified Confederation technology. The aliens had never weaponized their phase-shifting tech, considering it unethical. Humans had no such reservations. 10 seconds, said Ryu. 9, 8. Bay watched the screen. The swarm continued its approach, seemingly unaware of the defense platforms hiding behind Neptune's moons. 3, 2, 1. Execute Thunderbolt, Bay ordered. The space around Neptune lit up as dozens of hidden platforms opened fire. Beams of blue energy cut through the vacuum, striking the first wave of the swarm. The phase-shift weapons didn't just damage the creatures, they tore them apart at the molecular level. For a moment, hope surged through the command center. The first line of the swarm disintegrated under the assault. It's working, someone shouted. Bay didn't join the celebration. She kept her eyes on the screen, watching the second line of the swarm approach. Something's changing, said Park, pointing at the screen. Look at their formation. The swarm was shifting, reorganizing. The creatures in the second wave seemed to be growing shells, thick metallic coverings that hadn't been there before. They're adapting, Bay said quietly. The defense platforms fired again, but this time the results were different. The blue beams still damaged the swarm, but no longer destroyed them completely. Some creatures broke apart, but others pushed through, their new shells glowing where the beams hit. So they're learning, said Ryu, his voice tense. Already? Bay nodded. The Confederation had warned them about this. The swarm adapted quickly to any weapon used against it. Switch to Protocol Beta, she ordered. All platforms. The platforms changed. Their attack, firing not energy beams but clouds of nanites. Tiny robots programmed to infiltrate and disable the swarm from within. This was entirely human technology, something the swarm had never encountered before. The screen showed the nanite, clouds enveloping the swarm. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, the creatures began to float aimlessly, their lights going dim. It's working, said Park. The nanites are disrupting their neural networks. Bay allowed herself a small smile. How long until they adapt? Hard to say, Park replied. Minutes, maybe hours if we're lucky. Then we use those minutes wisely, said Bay. She pressed her communicator again. All stations, this is command. The first attack was successful, but they're already adapting. Prepare for second wave deployment. As she gave her orders, Bay kept watching the screen. More swarm creatures were appearing at the edge of the solar system. This was just the beginning. "We've won the first battle," she told her team, "but the war has just begun." Around the room, faces showed a mix of excitement and fear. They had faced the swarm and survived. Something no other species had managed. But they all knew harder tests were coming. 3 weeks after the first contact, the main body of the Void Swarm arrived. It came like a dark cloud that blocked out the stars, stretching across space as far as sensors could detect. The scout waves had been just a tiny fraction of the swarm's true size. Colonel Beiji watched from Earth's Defense Command Center as the massive enemy force approached Mars. The red planet's defenses were ready, a mix of automated platforms and brave volunteers who had stayed to fight the delaying action. "Mars Defense reporting all systems online," said Lieutenant Ryu, his voice tight with tension. Bai nodded. "Tell them to begin Operation Red Shield." On the main screen, tiny dots of light appeared around Mars as the defense platforms activated. They fired as one, sending waves of different weapons against the swarm. Phase shifters, nanite clouds, and new sonic disruptors all struck the front line of the enemy. The swarm paused, seeming confused by the variety of attacks. Hundreds of the creatures broke apart or drifted away, disabled, but there were millions more behind them. "They're testing our defenses," said Park Ji, who hadn't left the command center in days. "Learning what we can do." "And adapting," added Bay quietly. Sure enough, the swarm began to change. Some creatures grew thicker shells, others seemed to split into smaller units that were harder to hit. The wave surged forward again, pressing toward Mars. "Mars Colony, this is Earth Command," Bay said into her communicator. "Begin evacuation protocol. I repeat, begin evacuation now." On the screen, small ships began to launch from the Mars surface, racing away from the planet as the swarm closed in. Not everyone would make it out. The volunteer defenders would stay until the end. "Incoming transmission from Mars Defense," reported Oh Sung. The screen changed to show the face of Captain Kang, commander of the Mars forces. Behind him, people rushed back and forth, preparing for the final stand. "Earth Command, we're ready to execute final protocol," he said. His face was calm, despite what was coming. Bay met his eyes through the screen. "Understood, Mars Defense." "Your sacrifice will not be forgotten," Kang smiled slightly. "Just make it count, Colonel." The transmission ended. Bay turned to her team. "All ships clear of Mars orbit." "Last transport is away now," confirmed Ryu. Bay took a deep breath. "Tell Captain Kang he may proceed." On the screen, Mars seemed peaceful for a moment, the red planet turning slowly as the swarm approached from all sides. Then suddenly, a series of flashes appeared on the surface. The final protocol had begun. Mars had been lined with special C devices, a combination of the strongest explosives humans could create and modified Confederation technology. As they detonated, they didn't just damage the planet, they tore holes in space itself, creating temporary rifts that pulled in everything. Nearby, the front lines of the swarm were caught in the artificial gravity wells, billions of creatures crushed or torn apart. For a brief moment, it seemed like the attack might actually stop the enemy. Then the dust cleared. Mars was gone, reduced to floating rocks and debris. But the swarm, though damaged, continued forward. The creatures moved through the remains of the planet, already beginning to consume the floating rocks to repair themselves. "Mars Defense is gone," said Oh Sung quietly. "Last transmission received 8 minutes ago." The command center was silent. Everyone knew the Mars defenders had expected to die, but seeing an entire planet destroyed, along with all the brave people who had stayed behind, was still a shock. "What's the swarm's new course?" Bay asked finally. "Straight for Earth," replied Park. "They'll reach the moon in 6 days." Bay straightened her uniform. There would be time to mourn later. "Status of the Europa colony." "Already under attack," said Ryu. "The swarm split its forces. The colony is holding but won't last long." The Europa base was smaller than Mars, with fewer defenses. It had always been a long shot. "Tell them to execute their evacuation now," ordered Bay. "No heroics. We need every person we can get for Earth's defense." As her team rushed to carry out her orders, Bay studied the main screen. The swarm had lost perhaps a quarter of its mass to the Mars defense. It wasn't enough, but it was something. "Prepare all lunar bases for full defensive operations," she said, "and inform President Lee that it's time to activate the SHIELD network." The final battle for Earth was coming. Everything they had planned, all the weapons they had built, it would all be tested soon. Humanity's last stand would begin at the moon. "We just have to hold them off long enough," said Park, coming to stand beside her. "Long enough for what?" asked Ryu. Bai's face was grim but determined. "Long enough to find their weakness. Every enemy has one. We just have to survive until we find it." The moon fell after 2 days of fierce fighting. General Bai Ji watched from Earth Command as the last lunar base went silent. She had been promoted after the Mars battle. Not that ranks mattered much now. What mattered was survival. "Lunar base is gone," reported Oh Sung, his voice hollow. "All communications lost." The command center was quiet. Everyone stared at the main screen showing the swarm surrounding the moon. The creatures were already consuming the lunar bases, breaking them down and using the materials to grow their numbers. "How long until they reach Earth?" asked Bai. "Hours," replied Park Ji. The scientist looked exhausted. She hadn't slept in days, working non-stop to find some way to stop the enemy. "The SHIELD network is ready, but—" She didn't need to finish. They all knew the shields wouldn't hold for long. The swarm had already adapted to most of their weapons. Each victory had been shorter than the last. "Send the alert," ordered Bai. "All civilians to the deep shelters. All defense forces to their positions." President Lee Sun's face appeared on a side screen. He was in the backup command center beneath the old mountains. "General, is it time?" Bai nodded. "They're coming, Mr. President. We should activate the shields now." Lee looked older than his 60 years. The weight of humanity's fate had aged him quickly. "Do it, and may whatever gods exist watch over us all." Park Ji pressed her hand against the activation panel. Around the world, thousands of devices powered up. The SHIELD technology had been Earth's biggest project, a combination of human innovation and adapted confederation tech. As it activated, a faint blue glow appeared in the sky, visible from every point on the planet. "SHIELD at full power," confirmed Park. "Now we wait." They didn't wait long. The first wave of the swarm hit the shield less than 2 hours later. On the main screen, they could see the creatures pressing against the blue barrier, testing it, looking for weaknesses. "They're attacking all points simultaneously," said Ryu, now a captain. "No concentration of forces yet." "That's something at least," said Bai. "Status of Phoenix Protocol?" "Ready," replied Park. "But we need to be sure of the target. We only get one chance." Phoenix Protocol was their last hope, a desperate plan created after studying the swarm's behavior. The scientists had noticed something. The swarm seemed to have a collective intelligence, but some creatures appeared to direct the others. If they could find and destroy these control nodes, they might disrupt the entire swarm. An alarm blared. Suddenly, Ryu's fingers flew across his control panel. "Shield breach in Sector 12, near New Delhi." More alarms followed. "Breach in Sector 4, Sector 19, Sector 8. The shield was failing faster than they had expected. The swarm had already adapted to the technology. "All defense forces engage the enemy at breach points," ordered Bai. "Evacuation teams to high-risk areas, on screens." Around the command center, they could see the fighting begin. The swarm poured through the gaps in the shield, descending on cities and military bases. Human forces fought back with everything they had. The latest weapons, combat mechs, even old-fashioned guns and explosives, when nothing else worked. "Seoul is under direct attack," reported Oh Sung, his voice cracking. "New York and Cairo, too." Bai watched as her home city was swarmed by the enemy. Buildings crumbled as the creatures consumed them. The civilian shelters would hold for a while, but not forever. "We can't win this way," she said quietly. "We need to implement Phoenix now." "But we haven't identified the control node yet," protested Park. "Then we have to draw it out," replied Bai. Her face was set with determination. "Ready my ship, I'm going up." "General, you can't," began Ryu. "I can and I will," cut in Bai. "Someone has to lead the mission, and I won't ask my people to do what I won't do myself." President Lee, still watching on the screen, nodded slowly. "The general is right. Conventional defense has failed. It's time for Phoenix. Bay looked around at her team, people she had worked with for months, preparing for this moment. I need volunteers. 6 people, the best pilots and fighters we have. Once we're in space, we look for the control node and hit it with everything we've got. Hands raised around the room. Despite the near certainty of death, they were willing to follow her. This is our darkest hour, said Bay. But remember what they say, the night is darkest just before dawn. As she turned to leave, Park Ji grabbed her arm. I've been working on something, a device that might disrupt their neural patterns. It's not tested, but... Bring it, said Bay. At this point, we need all the help we can get. Outside, the sky was filled with the swarm. Earth's final battle had begun. General Bay Ji's ship shot upward through the falling swarm creatures. The small vessel shook as enemy after enemy crashed against its shields. 5 other ships followed, close behind, each carrying a brave volunteer. Stay in formation, Bay ordered through her helmet communicator. Remember, we're looking for something different, larger, more complex. Park Ji sat next to her, clutching a metal box the size of a small suitcase. Inside was the experimental device she had created, the neural scrambler. It might disrupt the swarm's collective mind if they could get close enough to the control node. There, shouted Park, pointing at the view screen. That pattern of movement, it's not random. Bay saw it too, while most of the swarm moved in. Straight lines toward Earth. Some creatures seemed to be circling around a central point, like guards protecting something important. All ships, follow me, Bay commanded. She changed course, heading toward the protected area. Arm all weapons. The 6 human ships accelerated, their engines glowing blue against the blackness of space. The swarm noticed the approach and reacted. Immediately, hundreds of creatures broke off from the main body and moved to intercept them. They're defending something, said Kangji, pilot of the second ship. We must be on the right track. The first wave of swarm defenders reached them. Bay fired the ship's main weapon, a modified phase shifter that could still damage the creatures, even if it couldn't destroy them completely. 2 swarm entities broke apart, but 3 more took their place. We can't fight them all, said Park, checking the ship's shields. We're at 70% already. We don't need to fight them all, replied Bay. We just need to get through. She opened a channel to all ships. New plan. Ships 3 and 4 draw off as many as you can. Ships 5 and 6 create a path for us. My ship and ship 2 will push through to the target. Understood, came the replies. No one questioned the orders, even though they knew what it meant. The decoy ships would not survive. Ships 3 and 4 broke away, firing wildly to attract attention. The plan worked. Nearly half the defenders chased after them. Ships 5 and 6 moved ahead, launching special mines that exploded into clouds of nanites, briefly disabling any swarm creature they touched. Now! Shouted Bay. She pushed her ship to maximum speed, diving through the gap created by her teammates. Ship 2 followed close behind. Behind them, Ship 5 exploded as swarm creatures tore through its shields. Ship 6 soon followed. Ahead, the protective circle of swarm entities grew thicker. We're almost there, said Park, her eyes fixed on the sensors. Something big is at the center. The ship rocked violently as a swarm creature slammed into their side. Alarms blared as the shields failed. Hull breach in the lower section, reported. Park. Ceiling now. Bay gritted her teeth and kept flying. Through the view screen, she could finally see what the swarm was protecting. A massive entity, at least 10 times larger than the others. Unlike the smaller creatures, which were dark and insect-like, this one glowed with pulses of blue light. The control node, whispered Park. It has to be. Ship 2 exploded behind them, taking dozens of swarm creatures with it. Bay's ship was now alone, damaged and surrounded by enemies. We won't survive another hit, said Park, checking the failing systems. Bay looked at her, then at the neural scrambler. We don't need to survive. We just need to deliver that device. Understanding dawned on Park's face. She nodded once and began pressing buttons on the scrambler. Setting it to maximum power, it will overload after activation. How close do we need to get? Asked Bay. Very close. Almost direct contact. Bay took a deep breath and aimed the ship directly at the glowing node. Then that's what we'll do. She opened a channel to Earth Command. This is General Bay. We've found the control node and are moving to engage. Prepare all remaining forces for counterattack when the swarm becomes disorganized. President Lee's voice came back, breaking up with static. Understood, General. Good. Luck, Earth stands with you. Bay increased speed. The ship's engines screamed in protest as they pushed beyond safe limits. 10 seconds to impact, said Park. Her hands were steady as she readied the scrambler. Swarm creatures battered the ship from all sides, trying to stop them. The hull groaned under the assault. 5 seconds, counted Park. Bay looked at the beautiful blue Earth below them, still fighting despite everything. 3, 2, 1. Park activated the scrambler just as their ship crashed into the control node. A pulse of energy, unlike anything humans had created before, exploded outward. For a moment, the space around them seemed to ripple like water. On Earth, defenders watched in amazement as the swarm suddenly stopped attacking. The creatures drifted aimlessly, bumping into each other with no purpose or direction. The counterattack had begun. President Lee Sun stood at the large window of the rebuilt orbital station Unity. 1 year had passed since the day General Bay G and her team had sacrificed themselves to save Earth. Outside, the stars shone brightly against the darkness of space. "Sir, they're here," said Kim Do, now the head of Earth's defense forces. Lee turned to see the large screen showing a fleet of ships approaching Earth. They were sleek and silver, Confederation vessels returning to the system they had abandoned. "Right." "On time," said Lee. His hair had turned completely white during the war with the swarm, but his back was still straight, his eyes still sharp. Earth had changed in the year since the final battle. Cities were being rebuilt, the dead had been mourned, and the remaining swarm creatures, now harmless without their control node, had been studied and even put to work, helping to clear debris and rebuild what they had once destroyed. The main Confederation ship is requesting docking permission, reported Oh-Sung, who had survived the war and now served as Earth's chief communications officer. Lee nodded. "Grant it, and make sure our honor guard is ready." An hour later, Lee stood in the station's grand hall as the airlock opened. Lu, the blue-skinned alien who had first welcomed humanity to the stars, stepped through. Behind Lu came representatives from all 27 Confederation species. "President Lee," said Lu, bowing slightly, "we are grateful for your welcome." Lee's face remained neutral. "You return to a world you abandoned." Lu's large eyes blinked slowly. "Yes, we have come to acknowledge our error and to honor those who did what we could not." The aliens moved into the hall, looking around at the human guards standing at attention. Many of the guards bore scars from the fighting. All wore a special badge, a small blue earth with a shield. "You've studied the swarm," said Lu. "It wasn't a question." "Yes," replied Lee. "Once General Bay destroyed the control node, the creatures became harmless. They're still alive, but they have no purpose, no direction. In all our history, no one has ever defeated the swarm," said one of the other aliens, a tall being with skin like tree bark. "Many fought. All failed." "Until now," added Lee quietly. The aliens looked uncomfortable. Good, thought Lee. They should feel uncomfortable. Their fear had nearly cost humanity everything. "We have come with an offer," said Lu finally. "The Confederation wishes to formally apologize for abandoning Earth. We offer full membership, not as juniors but as equals, and we request that you share your knowledge of defeating the swarm in case they return elsewhere." Lee looked at the alien delegation. Once he had been awed by them. Now he saw them clearly. Advanced, yes, but also afraid. Too afraid to fight for their homes. Too afraid to stand together. "Humanity will consider your offer," he said, "but we have conditions." The aliens looked at each other. This was not what they had expected. "Name them," said Lu. "First, no species will ever be abandoned again," said Lee firmly. "The Confederation must pledge to defend all its members, not just evacuate the chosen few." Lu nodded slowly. "That is fair." "Second, Earth will lead a new defense force," continued Lee. "We've proven we know how to fight. Others can learn from us." The tree-like alien stepped forward. "You ask much from those who have existed in peace for centuries. Peace bought by running away isn't true peace," replied Lee. "It's just delayed war." After much discussion, the aliens agreed to Earth's terms. A new charter was drawn up and signed by all 28 species. The Galactic Confederation would change. No longer would they flee from threats. They would stand together. 1 month later, Han Tai returned to his position as Earth's ambassador, but now he sat at the center of the Confederation Council, not at the edge. Beside him was Admiral Kang So, who would lead the new defense forces. As the new council session began, Han looked around at the alien representatives. They still didn't fully understand humans, he thought. They didn't understand why Earth had chosen to fight rather than run. "The first item on our agenda," announced the council leader, "is the memorial for General Bei Ji and her team. Their sacrifice will be honored throughout Confederation space." Han nodded in approval. Bei and her volunteers deserved to be remembered. They had shown the galaxy that running wasn't always the answer. Sometimes you had to stand and fight for your home, no matter the odds. As the meeting continued, Han gazed out at the stars visible through the council chamber's dome. Somewhere out there, perhaps other threats were waiting. But next time, humanity wouldn't face them alone. The species that had once fled would now stand with them. As the Dauntless moved toward the station, another ship appeared on their screens. It was the Nevari trading vessel, fully repaired and painted with fresh colors. The ship looked new and strong, nothing like the broken vessel they had rescued. "In deep space." "They're hailing us, Captain," Min said with a smile. "Put them through," Ju replied. The view screen showed Captain Seo looking well and happy. "Dauntless, welcome back to Alliance space. We would be honored to dock beside you." "The honor is ours, Nevari vessel," Ju responded warmly. As the two ships moved side by side toward the station, Ju noticed something new on the Nevari ship's hull. Next to the Alliance symbol was painted the Earth Fleet emblem, a blue Earth with stars around it. SEO had made his ship a symbol of the new friendship between their peoples. The docking went smoothly. When the airlock opened, Navigator Tai was the first to step aboard the Dauntless. She wore a new uniform that combined elements of Nevari and Earth Fleet designs. "Welcome aboard, Liaison Officer Tay," Ju said formally, but with a warm smile. Tay bowed. "It is good to be back, Captain." Over. The past 3 months, many things had changed. The Alliance had revised its rescue protocols, requiring responses to all distress calls regardless of location or cargo value. 7 other ships had been rescued under the new rules already, and Tay had been appointed as the first official liaison between the Nevari people and Earth. Tay joined Ju on the bridge as they prepared for their first official function at the station. Alliance officials would be coming aboard for a tour of the Dauntless, followed by a formal dinner to celebrate the new partnership. "Captain," Officer Min called suddenly, "I'm receiving an emergency transmission, a distress call from a mining outpost in Sector 7. They report critical equipment failure and several injured workers." The bridge fell silent. Everyone looked at Captain Ju. The diplomatic reception was scheduled to begin in just 2 hours. Important Alliance officials were already on their way to the Dauntless. "How far is the mining outpost?" Ju asked. 4 hours at maximum speed, Min replied. Ju turned to Executive Officer Gil. "Contact the station. Tell them we must postpone the reception." Gil nodded. "Yes, Captain." Ju glanced at Tay, who stood straight and nodded with newfound determination. The Nevari officer had changed in the month since her rescue. She no longer showed the hesitation that was common among her people. "Set course for the mining outpost," Ju ordered. "Maximum speed." The bridge crew moved quickly, each person knowing exactly what to do. Human officers worked alongside the new Alliance crew members who had joined the Dauntless for this mission. They moved with shared purpose, united by their mission to help others. As the Dauntless broke away from the station, Ju turned to Tay. 4 hours might not be soon enough for the injured workers. "We will make it in time," Tay said with confidence that would have surprised her former self. "The Dauntless always does." Ju smiled at how much her friend had changed. "That's the thing about humanity, Tay. We've been lost ourselves too many times to ignore another's call for help." Outside the viewports, the stars streaked by as the Dauntless accelerated to full speed. Behind them, the station grew smaller. Ahead lay another mission, another chance to show what humanity and the Alliance could accomplish together. On the hull of the Dauntless, a new symbol had been painted, the Earth Fleet emblem intertwined with the Alliance star pattern. Like the two crews working together on the bridge, The symbols represented a new beginning, a new understanding between different peoples united by the vastness of space and the simple promise that when someone called for help, someone would answer.